Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on some pretty sophisticated stuff automated military deception. We're talking about a world where algorithms aren't just for machines anymore, they're being designed to influence human minds. So let's just jump right in. We're about to explore a world where the main target isn't tanks or jets, it's human psychology itself. You see, the goal here isn't just to win a fight in the traditional sense. Nope. It's to actually control how your opponent thinks, feels, and ultimately acts. All right, here's the game plan for today. First, we'll look at the new rules of war. Then, we'll get into the deceptive games being played. After that, we're going to peek under the hood of the influence machine itself, see what makes it tick, the psychological fuel, so to speak. And finally, we'll uncover its ultimate and frankly, pretty unsettling purpose. Okay, first up, let's talk about that big foundational shift. I mean, how exactly is the very definition of warfare being rewritten right now? You know, the core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. It's this: why use brute force to destroy an opponent when you can just influence them? Get them to act in a way that helps you. It's way more effective and a whole lot less costly. So, how do you turn this idea, this influence over force concept, into an actual strategy? Well, it all comes down to a military doctrine with a fancy name: effects-based operations. We'll just call it EBO. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. Think about it. Traditional warfare is a slugfest, right? It's all about who can break the most things. But EBO, that's more like a grandmaster chess match. It's not about just knocking pieces off the board. It's about achieving a very specific outcome, maybe changing a government's policy, for example. And to do that, you use everything in your toolkit: diplomatic pressure, economic moves, information campaigns, not just the military. And check out this quote. This is from a key planner of the Desert Storm Air Campaign. So this isn't just theory. This gets right to the heart of why they developed EBO. It's about being smarter, faster, and way more efficient. And the bottom line? It's about accomplishing the goal with fewer resources and, most importantly, fewer casualties. Okay, so how do you actually achieve these effects? Well, believe it or not, you do it by playing games. And I mean that literally. We're talking about deceptive games, specifically designed to psychologically outmaneuver your opponent, to trick them into doing things that go completely against their own best interests. First up is something called the greed trap. Just think of it like a digital con job. You get baited with these small, easy wins, to build up your confidence. But what's really happening is you're being led down a path where that big final prize, it becomes totally impossible to get. Next, we've got the smoothness trap. This one is clever. It plays on our own natural instincts, our bias that good things are usually found near other good things. So what does the trap do? It hides the best possible solution somewhere that looks incredibly dangerous, surrounded by a bunch of really bad options. It basically discourages you from even looking in the right place. And rounding out our trio is the generality trap. This one is all about building a habit. You establish a predictable pattern. For instance, you teach your opponent that a certain digital backdoor is always open and unguarded. They start to rely on it, right? It becomes a general rule for them. And then, bam. At the absolute most critical moment, you change the rule. The door is trapped. The result? Catastrophic failure. Okay, so playing these kinds of mind games with one person is one thing. But what if you wanted to play them with an entire population? Well, for that, you need some serious tech. You need what you might call an influence machine, something built to run these games on a massive scale. So this system we're talking about comes from Lockheed Martin's Sandy Labs, and it starts with a truly ambitious goal: to build a complete digital model of an entire society. And just look at how it's laid out. It's basically a pyramid, right? A layered cognitive network. You've got the leaders at the very top, then you move down through their supporters, different factions, all the way to the general population at the bottom. But it doesn't stop at that big picture view. From there, the system zooms way, way in, right down to the individual. And here, each person is modeled as what they call an agent. You can think of it as a kind of digital twin. It's a simulation of a person whose understanding of the world, whose choices, whose actions can all be computationally mapped out and, ultimately predicted. And this is the real core of the engine. This is where things get almost scarily detailed. The model tries to factor in, well, everything: what a person perceives, their memories, their personal goals, even their emotional state at any given moment. And it crunches all of that data for one reason: to forecast what that person is going to do next. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's really the whole philosophy behind it. This system is built on the idea that even the most complex human behavior can be broken down into simple, predictable parts. Think of them like Lego bricks. And just like Legos, these little behavioral mechanisms can be combined and reconfigured in near infinite ways to build a complete computational blueprint for any person or any group. Now, there's a really crucial detail here we need to touch on. This system was developed privately by Lockheed Martin. And what that means is that it didn't have the usual US government oversight that comes with military-funded projects. There weren't the same kinds of ethical review boards involved during its creation. All right, so we've got this incredibly complex machine that can model human behavior. But what's the fuel? What makes this whole engine run? It all boils down to one single, incredibly powerful psychological principle: cognitive dissonance.
Now, this flowchart might look a little complicated at first glance, but trust me, it's the key to the whole operation. Everything here revolves around dissonance. And what is that? It's that uncomfortable, stressful feeling you get when what you expect to happen doesn't match up with your reality. This whole engine is designed to do three things: find that gap, make it bigger, and then manipulate the stress that it causes.
So, how does the engine actually create this dissonance? Well, it's all about pulling different levers that shape how we see the world. You can distort media narratives, you can mess with economic conditions, you can play on cultural and religious beliefs, you can get governments to amplify certain messages. You can pull any of these levers to create and widen that powerful gap between what people expect and what they experience. And what's the point of manufacturing all this psychological stress? It's to steer people's behavior. The goal could be anything, really. You could push a population into becoming more passive and compliant, or you could agitate them into taking political action, or you could even nudge them towards violence. It all depends on the strategic goal. Okay, so you've got the overarching strategy, you've got the deceptive psychological games, and you have the dissonance engine to power it all. So where does this all lead? What does it all build up to? Well, here it is, the ultimate application: a fully automated system for destabilizing entire social networks. And this algorithm, this is the final piece of the puzzle. It's the end game. It's basically a relentless automated loop that never stops. First, it estimates how a group is behaving. Then it simulates a bunch of different actions to see what would be most disruptive. Then it actually implements the winning action in the real world. And finally, it observes the results, learns from them, updates its own model, and then starts the whole cycle over again. It's designed to get better and better at its job. You know, when you put it all together, this technology offers a level of influence and control that is, well, it's truly unprecedented. And that leaves us with one final and, I think, absolutely critical question to think about.